Are we? Is it on? We're live. Oh boy, be careful. Here we go, guys. Page Yud Aleph. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of this mimer. V'zehu bina yasera nitna be'isha yosem be'ish. This finally goes back to what we had opened up this topic before, that there's more wisdom, or there's more understanding. Bina was given to the woman more than into the man. Yedua the dibor nikra isha. Now we're saying that speech is also called the woman, right? Why? Because speech is called a makabel. Speech is like malchus, right? So, and what have we been saying? There's an extra bina in the kli, right? So just like there's extra bina in the woman, there's also the woman is called speech. Shmos daf beis amid beis v'daf gimel amid aleph alpi, right? Iti milvanon kala. Fine. There's an Indian, or Asi milvanon kala. Sorry, she comes from the kala comes from the Lebanon. Benisna bina yasera, bedibor yosem bechinas seichel umidos. So therefore, too, it says that the extra bina was given into speech more than into the, so to speak, man of speech, which is the intellect and the emotions, which are the mashpia to the speech. There's more bina in the speech, as we've been saying. Dibor dafka, because specifically through the speech, meir bechinas penimius va'atzmus ora seichel va'amidos chulu kanal. Because only when you get to the bottom, the actual letters, it triggers the shoresh of the light to shine stronger. And that's what he says here, that specifically through the speech, it's the penimius and the essence of the light of the intellect and the seichel and the midos shine. So what does it say, bina yasera, bina dafka? Why does it say specifically bina, right? That we just said is talking about dibor. So it's nice that dibor, speech, is likened to bina. They're both called a woman. But we learn this, it doesn't say that, there's an extra power in speech. It says there's an extra power in bina. It's given to the woman more than the man. Why bina?
Is there something that women like with music more than men? Like this in Black's concert, he's like, every concert we go to, women are so much more good than the guys. And this one's no different.
I'm going to just keep going, if you don't mind. Yeah. Who lefisha bina who bechinas hakoach hakoach his galus. What does bina have going? Maybe you'll fit that in here, right? Because it says the shabina who bechinas koach his galus. What does bina have going for it? It's a revealer. It has the power to reveal. Ki yedua hefresh ben chochma ubina. Let's look at the difference between chochma and bina. Man or woman, perhaps you could say. The chochma bechinas ayin ubina bechinas yesh. In general, we call the idea of yesh and ayin is bina and chochma. Right? These two spheres come together in such a way. Why is chochma called ayin? Chochma me'ayin timatzeh. So there's like a verse or that puts them in the same sentence, which is nice. Yes, and oftentimes we do call upon that sentence. We want to make a sort of literal association between them, because it says chochma comes from nothing, right? But why is chochma actually nothing? What's its association with being nothing? Okay, so it's like an aperture, basically, right? Chochma is essentially an opening for light to come through. Or, that's an interesting way we often describe it. If you've been in my classes, we talk about all the spheres have sort of like a definition. Chochma's definition is actually to get out of the way, almost like a window in a wall. It doesn't have, right? It's defined by its space of not being there. But also, in a more practical way, you could say, the job of chochma is to reduce everything back to its simplest point. In other words, if you're going to find the chochma of a thing, you're going to take 1,000,001 details, and you're going to be able to deduce its essential point. So you actually, the aspect, the action of putting chochma on something is to make it lose its details and to make it have less meat on the bones, and basically all the way back to you reduce it to a point of nothing, even like a simple point, which doesn't actually take up any mathematical space, right? A true mathematical point, right? Doesn't have any dimensions. So if you could get something to its actual essential point, it would be nothing. right? It wouldn't take up any space. That's sort of, from that point, then if you want to then go the other way with Bina, that's why Bina is called the Yesh, because it essentially brings out from that central point, and if, depending how pointy it is, an infinite number of details, right? If you have an original Chokhmah which has a little meat on its bones, and it's already sort of a finite point of Chokhmah, then when you try to flesh that out, you'll come to a finite entity. But if your point of Chokhmah is like the point of like primordial wisdom, which cannot be understood, then the ability to try to bring out its explanation would kind of go on forever. And that's the ending of Bina. When you apply the Bina to the point of Chokhmah, its job is to just bring more and more and more and more and more revelation. And that's what we just said, that Bina's inyan is the koach of his galus. Its job is to bring to revelation that which is hidden in the point. As it's known, Chokhmah is ayin, Bina is yesh. V'hainu de Chokhmah, imayoshu gam kem giloi. Now, even though, as Shmuel just pointed out, he said it's like kind of like light, because it opens itself up and shows light. Now, even though Chachma is also has some Giloi to it, because again, it's not Keser. Keser is even a further primordial point, where it doesn't even show up on the radar. Chachma shows up on the radar, as a point at least, right? So therefore, Chachma also has a shtickle Giloi to it, right? But what is its revelation that it brings? Like I said, a simple point. There's a point there, right? So you got a point. So you can't say it's nothing mamish, like Kesser would be sort of, it doesn't even show up yet in the realm of the 10 spheres. It's beyond, it's sovev. So Chokhmah is actually already Reishis Chokhmah, means it's the beginning of all revelation. There is an aspect of revelation to Chokhmah, because at least it's the first one that enters into the Mamale realm and brings some schora there, right? But it's schora, the way it brings it is a simple point, which does not reveal any of that which it's brought to revelation. Shenikra Helamadan, it's still called total concealment, that light that it brings. And this is what I was just saying a second ago. And everywhere where you apply chokhmah, it has the job of turning the yesh into an ayin. For example, let's say a person's fighting with another person. This one has his strong held beliefs, and this one has his strong held beliefs, and they're not bending and yielding to the other. You bring chokhmah. What does chokhmah do? Chokhmah is bittul. Koach ma is also chokhmah. It's an aspect of everyone reducing themselves. They're saying, wait a second, maybe I shouldn't see my whole self as the only thing. Let me sort of self-reflect and see if I can find the other person's opinion in myself, bittul myself, to try and see them in me. And that's the idea of reducing the yeshus of a situation. When you apply chokhmah, because it's in as a nakuda, a point, wherever it goes, it sort of reduces everything into a point. It makes bittul everywhere. It makes the yesh into an ayin. That's the whole kind of concept of working on your midos, is that you have to apply the light of chokhmah to them. And what does the light of chokhmah do? Like we just said, it enables you to see many, many, many more viewpoints other than sort of your crass viewpoint, which is the one which is bumping up to the other guy's crass viewpoint, which is an inyan of yeshus. So when you apply the chokhmah, it makes the yesh into an ayin. Hainu sheyeh bechinas hederis pashtus, i.e., it is the opposite of expansion. When you bring chokhmah to a situation, it is a reduction. B'uzeu inyan v'chakem bebina. Right? This is essentially some secret poetry from Avram Avinu, mystical poetry, in the Sefer Yetzirah. And he says you should be chakem bebina, which means essentially use your chachma upon your bina. Shegam b'chinas ispashtus v'asagas riboy apratim shebebina yeh b'chinas ayin v'helam. That which means that even on my state of bina, let's say I have this. I mean, I'm reminded of my father's law school final thesis. They gave him like a case that was like stacked up from the floor of like hundreds of thousands of details, and his job was to sort of tell them over the case in a shorthand. Like, it's just give me the go to the lawyer, have a whole crazy 10-year case. Just give it to me straight, lawyer. What do I got here? So he came back and he reduced like the 7,000 pages to 700 pages. And they were like, you're going to fail. Get out of here. That's not what we meant. So he reduced the 700 pages to 70 pages. Nah, this is not what I'm looking for. 7 pages. He put it in a paragraph, right? This is like my father tells the story, and it's very a Hasidic mashal, really, right? And the idea is that's called chakem bebina. That you have to take your, that's what then he passed. And now he's a lawyer, right? So that you have to take all this hispashtus and put your chokhmah on your bina, even in a place of this wild expansion, the riboy pratim of bina, right? They should go also into a state of ayin and helam, right? Find the nakuda. Hainu, shiyuchlal rak b'nakuda echad, which means you take them all and you bring them into this simple one point. Shinakudas atamtzis. That's also a kind of a phrase we should remember. The concentrated point. That's what they call this. When you settle it down to its raw essence, it's when chokhmah does its job and finishes its job, and you get like the oil. Chokhmah is also called oil because you can reduce everything basically to like a drop of oil, which has its essence in it. They call it essential oils. If you want to buy some, my wife is the essential oil lady in town, and basically you can get anything you want. You can put in a drop of oil because it's nakudas hatamtzis. Or sometimes, yes, but sometimes like my father was not presented with the bina that came out of the chokhmah. He was just presented with all the bina, like we are in life. No one unfortunately comes into, except the Torah, nobody else tells you what all these details are doing here. And that's the whole point. You're just presented with like an infinite number of details. I have a father, I have a mother, brother, sister, job. It's like the world just comes at you with hundreds of millions of details. And the chacham is able to say like, oh, I understand what all this is really just a reflection of this singular point, God, right? So the idea is that sometimes you don't get the chachma at first, even though for sure there's no bina without chachma. But the point is the chachma has already spilled the beans, and now you have to apply the chachma to this bina that you see. It's called chakem bebina. Bring it all back to the nekudas atamtzis, the essential point, concentrated point. Ve'ikar gilehu bebina. Now, even though Chokhmah has a little bit of Giloy, as we just said, but the main Giloy is, of course, the main concept of revelation, of expanding the point, is Bina, which is actually what we're trying to point out. We're talking about Bina Yeser Nitna Leisha, that she has this power of revelation. The cool thing about the woman is that she can go the other way. You can give her something simple, and she'll make it complicated, right? Infinitely complicated. But that complication is showing you all kinds of revelations inside of this thing that you thought was simple. Just like your speech suddenly like produces all kinds of new information and an idea that you kind of thought was simple, right? Shahu b'chinas hispashtus b'riboy pratim. Bina is expounding it into many, many details. Ajia or musagu muvan heitiv. And what's the significance of this is that when you have details, you can understand something. Because when something is in a point, again, like an official mathematical point has no edges, try to hold something that has no edges. You can only hold something that has a north, south, east, west, up and down. It has to have the 6 midos. Midos literally means measurements, right? Otherwise, you can't grasp it. So without the bina, the woman, everything remains ungraspable. It has no extension, no expansion. V'zeu havein b'chokhmah. And so this is the other part of Avram's poetry. Instead of saying chakem bebina, in other words, in your bina, make chokhmah out of it. There's also the idea of havein b'chokhmah. Make bina out of your chokhmah. Don't just leave your point a simple seed. It's a wasted seed. You can make a baby out of that thing. Did you know you have? That's not what you think it is. Right? Hold everything. Put a little bina on that situation. You have a whole person. Right? Shekoach habina poel agilu gam nekudas hachokhmah. That the power of Bina affects revelation even upon this point of Chokhmah. It makes Chokhmah do crazy things that it wasn't expecting to do. Because Chokhmah's idea is to go constantly reduce itself and be in a state of nothingness. When it attaches to Bina, it goes against its nature and starts to reveal itself and come into a state of revelation. Now, not necessarily on the page, but that state of revelation can happen in 2 ways. Right? So you understand, Chokhmah is like busy trying to go hiding itself. Its job is to make point out of many. It hits Bina. Bina's like, wait a second, come back. Right? Reveal yourself. But the thing is, in this revelation, there's 2 kind of ways. And that's the chitzonius and the penimius of Bina itself, which attaches to the chitzonius and the penimius of Chokhmah. In other words, Bina can make Chokhmah decide to shine light from itself, which means that you're still not getting the revelation of the actual unknown point of Chokhmah. That is unknown, right? The Chokhmah point is a point which can never be known, correct? So in a certain sense, if Bina is going to attach to it, what's it going to get out is a ray of the unknown point, some details to come out. But Bina, in theory, this is where we're going to get to, it's kind of the exciting part, it has the power to reveal the essence of Chokhmah, which means that which cannot be known, right? In a state of perpetual concealment, this too, Bina has the ability to reveal. So when it reveals the panemias of Chokhmah, it doesn't just reveal details and rays of light from Chokhmah, it can reveal the unknown essence of Chokhmah itself. That's the panemias of Chokhmah. And that's what we're saying basically. When you hit the Koach the body, it triggers the source of the letters, if you recall from the beginning of this class. And the Chokhmah decides to come out and reveal itself further. When the Chokhmah, right, when a person, even when he was thinking to himself before he spoke, he still had his Chokhmah Bina-ized, because he was making details and details and details in his own head of how to unpack that essential point of an idea that he had. But it was all happening before he actually spoke. So that was revealing the details of Chokhmah, but not the panemius of Chokhmah, just the chitzonius of Chokhmah. Let me stop there and make sure everyone understands what I'm saying. Yes or no? When you're thinking to yourself, you're also in a state of revelation. The Bina is attached itself to the Chokhmah and is pulling out information from this seed, right? So that's all happening before you speak, right? Let's call it the letters of thought. So there's also a little bit of Bina there. They're also called letters. So, but it's only accessing the chitzonius of Chokhmah, which means Chokhmah's true essential secret has not yet come out. When you speak, then Bina, then we say, Bina Yasera Nita Isha. Because we said Isha here is like this level of speech. And all of a sudden there's an extra Bina when you give it to when this hits the speech. And what happens then? Not just little rays come out of that Chokhmah, but the essential unknowable Chokhmah, which is, according to all accounts at this point, cannot be revealed. Its whole idea is going into a state of ayin. You reveal the actual ayin itself. You don't just reveal some yesh that comes out of the ayin. You're actually able to capture the unknowable ayin and reveal it, that which is unrevealable. So Bina's true power is that then it can reveal the essence in that sense. You understand what we're saying here? Okay. We didn't really say that inside. I just trickled into my head that I wanted to share that with you because it's you see that in places and you're happy.
You expanded the Chokhmah and the Bina.
Yeah.
But nowhere there's the word Kesser involved in this. You're saying in the earlier class, where's Kesser been involved in this process?
Bina is sourced in Kesser. That's the whole point, right? Bina, let's say, is the letters or the speech or the body, So we just said the source of the letters is in the Pneumius of Kesser.
Could you bring it down to human layman's terms, that idea?
Yes, I mean, to a certain degree, it's the difference between speaking versus give the man's seed, right? Because when you speak, you're also revealing yourself. But that what you have in your awesome wisdom head, this beautiful person that you are, you could just start expounding mama's genius coming out of you, and people are writing down everything you say, all your words, right? Because but nonetheless, all those words don't really capture you, because it's just rays coming out. You didn't give the person your brain. Your brain stays with you, but you share rays of light from your brain. So even all these rays of light, they don't actually capture the essential you. That stays secret. But when you give a seed, it actually gives your brain. You're going to have a little kid that has a brain. It's your brain. So there's a panemius hamshacha that comes out of you, or a chitzonius hamshacha that comes out of you, right? You can actually, most of the time when you're giving a hamshacha, you're only giving the chitzonius revelations. The yesh that comes out of the ayin, it's revealing not the essential ayin, it's revealing aspects of the ayin, right? But there's an aspect of tapping into the panemius of Bina, which taps into the panemius of Chokhmah, then it brings out the essential ayin. And like you actually clone yourself, you reveal yourself. Now the truth is that strangely comes out in a way which looks less fancy and lightly illuminated, because a putrid drop doesn't seem to have much going for it compared to this voluminous, essays that you're expounding with your words. So on one hand, the more chitzonius hashpah looks brighter and fancier, But the essential hashpah, which is the real you, it comes out looking like a drop, more gashmias. And this is the whole point we see here from that the gashmias, like the goof, it has the ability to draw the essence more than the ruchnias does. Anyway, that's might have confused you more, but that's what I got. Okay, so then going on, I want to wrap this up. Look how close we are to finishing the first mimer, you guys. This is mamash a happy time. So he says the koach habina, 3 lines down, poel giloy gam b'nekudas hachokma. It affects the chokhmah to reveal itself. That's what the idea is. Havein bechokma, right? Use your bina on your chokhmah. Shilamayla megiloy. Even though chokhmah is above giloy, bina has this power to schlep it out anyway. The koach hachokma hulios bechinas ayin behelam dafka. We just got through saying chokhmah's whole thing is to not be revealed. It makes ayin out of any yesh that it comes into contact with. And not to come in and show itself. What do we see here? The power of bina pushes onto chokhmah for it to go the opposite of its nature. Chokhmah, like light, wants to go up into its source and disappear into Never Never Land. And bina makes it come down opposite of its nature, just like we got through saying about speech, right? That for some reason, your intellect is running down to your mouth to reveal itself, even though it wants to go up, not down. Why is that? We said many, many times, because it senses the source of the letters is higher than the source of the light. So its going down is really chokhmah's really finding its true mate, because it's going as high as it possibly could by going and finding the source of the letters down below. Right? So that's the idea that bina makes chokhmah go against this nature. Lavo b'chinas giloy dafka, to suddenly shine when it doesn't really have a nature to shine. It has nature to be inside of its source. And that's what it means that a woman has this bina yasera. B'chinas dibor, and we're saying that this represents speech. Speech has an awesome power of bina. It can make light, which does not want to come out and has a nature to stay up in its source. It can make it come down and reveal itself against this nature. And that's what I was saying in my little interlude there. It doesn't just have the ability to bring out the external aspect of light, which would be like a saying or a speech. It can bring out the panemius aspect of the light, which is like your seed. It can make the chokhmah, which wants to be mamish essential and never come out, bring out the whole flower, and mamish, you can make a brain. Your brain does not want to come out of your brain, right? Bina, this woman, makes your brain want to come out and make another brain. Lagalos gam b'chinas panemius va'atzmos ha'chokhmah. Bina can even bring out, like I was just saying, the essence of the chokhmah, shlemayl b'chinas giloy lagamri, which is entirely higher than revelation. In other words, the external aspect, like stage 1 of bina, is that it can make chokhmah shine. Stage 2, but the chokhmah stays in its place. It's just little rays shine out of it, already against this nature. Stage 2, the deeper aspect of it, is that it can make the chokhmah just delodge itself from its very source and come out in full as it is. Meaning it would never come out on its own, only through speech. Chulu kanal, this is why we're getting all you guys to make speeches. Yeah, all of you. And this is the extra bina which speech has. I'm going to give everyone a big mazel tov, because even finishing one mimer of Ranat is something to take home and be. We're never really proud of ourselves, but we're happy about our successes here. Mazel tov. We'll start the next mimer tomorrow.
What's wrong with being proud of oneself?
Pride.